Welcome to another episode of the Testing Peers. I'm Tara, joined by Daniel Billing, our special guest today.
Hi there.
And of course, the wonderful Christopher Armstrong.
Aloha.
And the amazing Russell Craxford.
Hello.
And today we are talking about the state of testing in the year of 2026. But first, just a little bit of banter from our special guest. Daniel, what have you got for us?
So a little while ago, I used to have a Twitter handle and it's no longer Twitter. So I stopped using X and my Twitter handle was the Test Doctor because that was the name of my business. And I chose that name because I'm a massive Doctor Who fan and also I'm a software tester / engineer, which we're going to talk about. And today or yesterday, I arrived from Amazon, one of my favorite seasons of Doctor Who, which you can't see at home, but it's season 21 from the original run of the show, the final season starring Peter Davison, which is probably my favorite season of the entire show because it's got my favorite story in it, which is The Caves of Androzani, which is his final episode as the Doctor. And I'm going to go and sit down and enjoy that later this week or the weekend, especially if it's going to be wet. So all the way from 1984. This box set is.
So does that mean it's a VHS cassette then?
Well, I did have some of these stories on VHS back in the day, either recorded off the telly or purchased because, you could only get them from W.H. Smith's or occasionally local Mr. Video or whatever your local video shop was. That was what mine was called. So, sometimes I got them from there as well. But this is Blu-ray.
Well, what question have you got for us then, Dan?
So I'm a big gamer. Video gamer as well as board games as well, and my partner and I, Tanya, we play a lot of board games at home, so things like Azul and Isle of Cats and Joypur and Splendor and a bunch of other things, and we go on frequent dates to our local board game shop, which is in the lovely city of Bristol in the southwest of England. So that's our thing that we do as a couple. But we also play video games together, either separately or together at the same time. So we often play them as a family, like Mario Party and things like that, with our kids when they're visiting. But I wanted to ask you, not exclusive to video games, or board games, but what is your favourite game to play and why?
There's a lot of games, isn't there?
I know, I'm like flipping through the Rolodex in my head. Most recently I've been playing Where Winds Meet. It is a free open world RPG. It's set in, I think, 10th century China, but the graphics on it, the storyline, everything is just absolutely beautiful for not charging people to play this. So that's ranked pretty high recently, but I think it just might be proximity bias too.
It's tricky because there's lots of different contexts. I don't want to give lots and lots of answers. The computer game that I've spent the most amount of time in my life playing, not a series, but an actual individual game, probably would be Mario Kart 64. Lots of shouting has happened, but lots of joy.
Classic version of the Mario Kart series.
Yeah.
Of course, on the N64, we had the incredible GoldenEye, which just still resonates even today.
It does indeed, but Mario Kart was the dream. Russell?
So I'm just going back to the game I keep going back to because I've played lots of games, Call of Duty and all the rest of it, but I always go back to playing one thing, it seems, more than anything else, and it's dull. Sudoku. Simple, effective, you can do it anywhere. It is quite a handy little game, but I find it quite addictive.
I agree with that one, though. I don't think it's dull, but I am a total math nerd, so I could
same problem. Numbers excite me.
I play Sudoku a lot, and there are some great offline and online versions, so it doesn't matter whether you're on a commute, stuck on a train, in a tunnel, like I am quite frequently.
Yep.
Going from Bristol to Cardiff for work.
It's one you can always play by yourself whenever you fancy. It doesn't require much, as you say. Pen and paper can do it. You can get offline versions, online versions. It's a go-to one.
In terms of mobile games, there's quite a few that I play, but one of my favorites is this one called Alchemy, or Little Alchemy, actually it's called, where you have elements like wind, fire, rain, whatever it might be, earth, sky, sun, whatever, and you combine these things to make new elements or new objects. and some of them are quite weird, obscure. Like you combine lava with steam and it will produce basalt rock or something like that. But then some of them that's quite straightforward, and you'll get that. But if you merge two together, you might get something really wild. Or if you merge a pistol with a piece of sheet metal, you get a tank, which is kind of odd.
It's like Minecraft on a crafting table on steroids. Hey?
Oh, it's the ultimate puzzle, though.
It's a really simple little game, and I play it quite a lot on my phone, and you can play it offline as well, which is awesome. So, but if we're going down the video game route, probably obviously you mentioned Call of Duty. I've been playing that for a long time, and I used to be in its predecessor, Soldier of Fortune. I was in clans for that when I was building PCs back in the early 2000s. But probably the Hitman series from IO Interactive. They're a Danish software development house. It was originally built by Eidos, who created Tomb Raider, I think. But I've put in many thousands of hours finding creative ways to assassinate people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And also, if a board game, probably Splendor is a great game where it's a trading game where you trade gems and collect cards and earn points. And it's a game that Tanya and I play together a lot.
So this week we were going to talk about, was it quality engineering in 2026 or 2026 in testing and alike? So I guess who wants to start us off? Who sees, I guess, the current state of affairs? I know we predicted the future before, but what's people's views of where we are today?
The world's on fire.
The world's on fire. Yeah, but I mean, so context for the listener is you won't be hearing this as soon as we're recording because thankfully we have a backlog of things and we don't have to rush to get these things out. But just last week, listener, we were at the Testing Peers Conference 2026, and there were many great presentations and conversations around testing and quality engineering this year. There's obviously been this little disruptor of AI that's come into our world, but also there's a lot more systems thinking. There's a lot more trying to improve ourselves, improve our craft, communicate better. There's a lot of that stuff going on. There were some really interesting tales, loads of different contexts and perspectives that were shared. And I feel like that's a good place to start. I feel like the only thing I would probably just have as my one little bat is if we remove the AI bit, I still feel like I'm very delighted that we as testers aren't only talking about automation, regardless of whether that's AI automation or just classic. I'm really delighted that we still talk about the craft being much broader.
I think you're right there, Chris, because the automation story has been going on for decades. In reality, whilst we get new tools every 5 to 10 years, or we come up with a variation on a theme, so the page object model and other technologies to support automation, whether it's Playwright or Selenium or what have you, there really isn't an awful lot of evolution in that space other than the innovations that we build ourselves. And I think the more interesting conversation is about the communication and the quality of the discussion that we're having about these topics and how we take them forward, rather than the technology is important, but it's not as important as the context and the conversation that we're having about how we deliver. And that was the thing that I got most from the conference last week, was that conversation, at least from what I was observing and hearing and paying attention to during the day when I wasn't presenting. So you're right. Yeah, AI is important as well, but it's not the be all or end all.
I think one of the things that really stuck with me from the conversations I've been having for months now has been, we all strive to kind of approach quality and testing in more of a holistic way, because we like being part of the conversation earlier so that we can make things run smoother down the pipeline. But now things are moving so quickly, and sometimes in the hands of people that really probably shouldn't even have their hands in the cookie jar to begin with. So really forcing that conversation further to the left, making sure we've got all of our I's dotted and T's crossed before things just start snowballing out of hand, is kind of where I see a lot of the conversations shifting to, and a lot of the efforts shifting to much more preventative than reactive, which I think is a great thing to finally happen to the testing industry, because we've been preaching it for years and now we kind of have to do it.
There's a certain element of having to redo what we've done before, like treading over the same ground, because we've now got this AI revolution that we've talked about. People vibe coding, people actually thinking they can build the applications themselves and do it a lot lower, with a lot lower friction, and they can create the automated tests and so on and so forth. But actually, to the very point of the conference and everything else, it's the wider context is missing, the communication, the what ifs, the broader conceptual ideas, the thinking from a user perspective, and all those angles. We've got tools that can help us if we frame things right for them, but actually we're having to teach a whole new bunch of people. So not just software engineers now, but actually AI users rather than just software engineers, about quality, what it means, the holistic view of quality. It isn't just, yeah, I can click on this button and we go the happy path. It works perfectly. Yeah, but what about the slightly unhappy path? What about real life? What about, yeah, you knocked up this prototype in 10 minutes, great with AI, but that's not production ready. How about resilience, reliability, performance? And you've got this whole thing now, which is driven, I think the communications just funnel has just gone so much wider. Sorry, people can't see my visual hand movements there. But
You had a
the
good sound
conversation,
effect, though.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So it's things just get so much broader. We've got to support, coach, advise, assist a much broader set of people now. Product managers who think they can do the building of the application, all these other people. So I think our conversations have grown exponentially in size. Who we need to speak to, how we can influence people. To Tara's point about getting earlier in that process, we've got to educate a whole new generation of people with different roles, and we're going to have to learn different communication skills, different ways of approaching them, different language that works for them, in order to persuade them the value of that holistic quality approach, and thinking about it up front rather than, oh look, we built this app, yeah, AI helped us. Oh yeah, but we can't scale it, it doesn't work, it only works in the happy path, it only does all these things. Yeah, it's great, but, and so helping them understand that's great for maybe a spin up for a startup, an experiment of an idea, but isn't for something that you maybe want to scale up. So those sort of conversations, I think, are going to be part of the evolution of how our world changes. There's always going to be the standard world with big companies building big apps still. I don't think that's dying quickly.
No, not when we still have people out there coding in things like Haskell and COBOL.
Yes, those systems will never die.
So many mainframes out there, right? Still running those things, running old banking applications and pensions and payroll.
Payment systems are very often ancient.
Yeah. I mean, it brings me to, I mean, my organisation that I work for, and I don't mind mentioning this here, I work for Principality Building Society in Cardiff. It's almost 200 years old. So we're trying to modernise and create efficiencies and grow more capacity and capability for our customers and obviously internally as well. But it's converging all modern technology alongside a lot of the legacy infrastructure that exists in an organization of that size and age. It's quite a challenge. I mean, you were mentioning about how the conversations we need to have and the quality of those conversations and the doing stuff earlier. I'm just thinking, I'm just responding to some of the activity in the industry recently. As an ex-Microsofter, I cannot really not mention the fact that their strategy now in the recent town hall, I think they're not really doing much in that space unless it's AI focused. And there were rumors that they were going to close a whole bunch of departments like Xbox and other things because it wasn't AI driven.
It's not unique in the industry now, is it? The big companies start doing these things and others follow.
I don't know whether that's true or not, but only a week before that, Block, who own a bunch of companies, including Square, and we have colleagues and friends who worked there or work there who have since had half of their colleagues made redundant because of the new AI strategy at Block. Now, I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I know of someone who was hired and then let go within a fortnight or a few weeks of joining because of that change in strategy. So it's a crazy time at the moment. I think obviously we have slightly different employment laws in the UK compared to the United States, where a lot of this is happening, and in other countries, but we're not immune to that. And every company, every organization that has engineering staff really needs to think carefully about whether they are going to lose a lot of that talent because they think that AI is going to solve all their problems. And Are we the people to caution against that? Maybe, maybe not. Are we part of that conversation? Absolutely, certainly. We need to put ourselves front and center, or at least be part of that debate. I didn't see all the talks last week, but the one that Callum did about how we have those conversations with our peers in all areas of the business is going to be key, all the way up to C-level. CTO are going to be key people.
It's a lot of like framing of expectations
Yeah.
and communicating value. Like our friend Vernon talks about, we have to be good salespeople. We have to be able to speak the language of the folks that we're speaking with. If you will indulge me for a quick second, I just want to have a very quick rant about interactions with our prompty friends again. So those of us that have had the pleasure of working in software for a while have been able to work and understand different syntaxes, different logic, and different frameworks. But there's that word logic. You kind of know the flow, how it should look, how it should feel. Right? We've had linters that guide us in the right direction. We have best practices. We've had all these things. It's quite comfortable. I know when I write these things, I follow that best practice, all that stuff goes. Then I'm suddenly confronted with having to speak in plain English language to explain to something that isn't conscious yet, to be able to actually understand what I want to get done. I know what it looks like in my head. I know what it would have been if I were coding it, but I have to use plain English to get something done. And the way we articulate when we converse isn't always logical. And we all have different contexts, different interpreters, many things. Live long and prosper, Dan. But it's tricky, it's difficult, and I find it really hard because even like I've got two kids and a wife, three other humans in my house. I can give all three of them one instruction and get a different response from the three of them. And they're human beings who know me and have lived with me for a long time and understand those things. I've long said any one of us put us in the exact same job, and even if we have the same quality as each other, we would do a different job. We would be drawn to different things. We would be anchored by different things. We would have different imposter syndromes. We would have different things that would make us feel better about ourselves. An LLM can't be done that way. I struggle with the time and effort that you have to take to train a model to understand what it is. Because this isn't just about a context markdown or a memory piece. Sure, that is a requirement. But being able to articulate exactly what I want without wasting my time showing it exactly what I want, therefore I've already done it. But I have to be anchored towards using it. I'm finding that particular part of my life very difficult. And by the way, I can see the point at which I maybe have trained one and it does kind of an okay job of duplicating me. But say, for example, the dot-com bubble replicates itself. We have the AI bubble where all the funding ends with AI, and suddenly that tool that you were friends with has disappeared and you must move on to another. That context won't be so easy to move on and train. It's just like when you get a new member of staff, except not at all because it's not a human being. And I'm just angry.
Not just the funding, Chris. You've got the energy
Oh
involved.
gosh, yeah, sustainability and energy as well. 100%. Yeah.
If we're piling all this cash into these new tools to help us build stuff faster, but actually not contemplating the mammoth energy costs.
Well, did you see the changes that are happening to Lion City?
You have to appraise me if that.
Lion City was going to be this incredibly long city, sustainable city, green city with very little anything but just being a self-sustained long city, only a couple hundred meters in width, but miles long. And it was going to be mirrored. It was going to go through the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia. And there was this really big, ambitious project. Saudis kind of moving away from being an oil-reliant nation and trying to diversify. And so they were going down the angle of sustainability. Sounds cool, like the project, do all these things. I read the other day, that they're going to change that to basically be more of a server farm for AI.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Okay. I suppose it'll make them an awful lot of money if they can turn the desert into a server farm. but what about all the ecosystem?
How do you cool that in the middle of a desert? How do you
Yeah.
cool that?
It's cold at night in the desert.
Sure, yeah, that solves all the problems.
Just
Well,
run them at night. Yeah.
yeah. It's going to be incredible. Well, they always use an area the size of Wales or the size of 34 football pitches to describe the size of things. But that's still an incredible amount of area to take up with lines and lines of concrete bunkers and solar panels in somewhere that doesn't really have a lot of bedrock anymore.
Well, how much the data that they put in these huge server farms is crap data, right? Like, one of the things we've always fought against as quality testers is garbage in, garbage out. And so often, anytime I have to deal with one of our lovely prompty friends, I have to say, where are you getting that? Because it's total crap. Try again. Use these vetted sources, please, and thank you. It's awful. And especially if you've trained your own model, but you've trained your own model on crap. Oh my gosh, it's so bad.
I usually am using AI to give me a quick example of something that I can do to remind me how to do something or craft something very quickly so I can solve a very quick, immediate task. So today I needed to update some test data in a database table, and I couldn't quite remember the syntax to do it in SQL. And then I need to update this. This is the table structure. This is what it looks like. And then immediately I had a workable piece of SQL that I could use, which I then tweaked and adapted to update the other rest of the data that I needed. So it was just a 30-second query, not garbage going in, but it gave me something very helpful coming out. But I knew exactly what I wanted. So I wasn't going to be getting crap out. When I first started looking at this, I was getting a lot of GIGO because the tools would just run away with the concepts that I was trying to. So I started putting in things like saying, don't actually execute anything until I've decided that's what I want, reviewing what you've produced, what it's produced, because it was not structuring things very well, wasn't very readable to a human being. And it was too verbose and largely not following the patterns that we wanted to follow as an engineering team. I was just exploring and learning with it. It wasn't going to ever become production code, but it was just too noisy. Now I'm much more comfortable with creating prompts that I might need to use to build, let's say, a simple task for an automation test would be building a page object model and getting the right level of quality in the locators to help identify something on a page. That's something Playwright does very well, and it has tools to help you do that, but they need help because this is something I was talking about in my workshop, is that whilst the tools are there and they're great and they're interesting and exciting, they create brittle tests and very noddy vanilla test plans. So it still needs a human being to really provide the level of context we need to solve the problems that we have for our organizations. Just using it out of the box is not appropriate in any way, shape, or form, at least in my experience.
So Chris started us off this episode saying not talking about AI, and we've gone down the rabbit hole of talking about AI. So in the 2026, I guess the year that we're currently on, AI is a big part of it. We can't pretend it's not. I think it's fair to say. Thus, we talk about it now. We talk about people, context being kind of a good thing and the thing that we need to focus on a little bit more. But what's the sort of the other trends? Like jobs, work, progression, thinking about broader pictures of people and what people can achieve these days. Have they radically shifted? Are they similar to what they have been?
So our dear friends at Practitest, they just put out the state of testing for 2026. And if you haven't gone through and read it yet, a lot of it is things you would have guessed. But there were a couple of things that really stood out for me. And one of them was this idea of all or nothing. So companies are either choosing to do all of their testing in-house or outsource everything, right? There's no middle ground. There's no shared responsibilities. And I know that I always fear that loss of context and then kind of having to bring on people with no idea about what your company values and what your product is meant to do and how your customers react to things when all of that testing lives outside of your bubble. So that trend was a little more shocking to me. I thought we would have kind of learned by now that that's not the greatest solution.
It's remarkable, isn't it, how many things that we've been debating for the last 10, 15 years still persist and still come back. But one of those themes and trends that we see is also, the communication and the social aspect of things. And while that is now different, and perhaps our first social point might be an LLM, actually, the folks that we interact with on a regular basis likely aren't just other testers or developers anymore. I think the dynamics of teams have changed a lot as time has gone by, and that's not just as folks have been in the industry longer and they sort of work their way up some sort of fictitious career ladder. We do just spend time with more product people, design people, other job roles that exist. Like, you spend a lot of time with people talking about things that are important to us and to them. I feel like we have a much more diverse mix as a result of that. And I remember the keynote that Isabel Evans did at Eurostar last year, where she said actually the spread of individuals that need to be around and participant in order for quality engineering to be successful is going to need to come from a much broader pool of individuals than maybe historically was more of a comp sci kind of background. And I think she's right. I think we do need more diversity in thought and practice to better represent these things. Does that mean there are fewer of that one kind of thing that we used to do? Probably. But it does mean there will be a lot of other new things as well, right?
Just looking at a list of jobs on LinkedIn that are test related, it's all engineering focused roles. Very few analyst or tester labels. You still see them. They're much, much fewer. But we're looking at areas of quality which we might not have had before. So site reliability comes up a lot. Platform quality comes up a lot. Even you still see SDET occasionally, but it's normally software engineer with a testing focus or something like that. You don't normally just get software tester, because talking about that broader context about the conversations that we're having, something that Callum was saying is that the negativity that we breed sometimes through the way that we interact with others, whether it's the context of the conversations or the tone of those conversations or the breadth and depth of those conversations, to confining them to just test topics, often creates a negative feedback loop with colleagues, certainly with senior people. And the question I asked Callum about it is like, I think we were having similar conversations 10 plus years ago, but now it's moved on, evolved. That conversation that I remember having a test bash where Martin Hinier did a talk about what happened if we renamed the testers to be something else, like agile consultants or something like that. And what that impact had on getting more engagement with the people that were test specialists by calling them something different. And also Keith Klein was talking in, I think might have been the same event, might have been the year previous, was talking about how we need to talk more robustly but smartly with senior people about testing and quality, because it's not necessarily interesting to them. They only care when it's affecting the bottom line at the moment. So too many testers, or not enough impact, customer value. That we've mentioned value a lot, but not only value to the business, but value to the customer, to improving the engineering as a whole. I think we still have a lot to do to improve that relationship. I think that when I first started being a tester, and this was 25 years ago, I was often very defensive because I think I came in without any computer science background. Some of the developers that I worked with were not friendly towards me or other testers in the team, of which there were 2 or 3. They didn't really understand why we were there, or we were seen sort of as sort of dog's bodies. Kind of, that's how it felt. It's that we were sort of second class, if you see what I mean. But I got on much better with my counterparts in the American team that I worked with, in, because they took the quality and testing conversation a lot more seriously, I think. And that came from their attitude towards skilling people up across all domains. So I learned a lot more from the engineers in the American teams I worked with. This was at AOL, was the first business I worked for. And the teams in Jacksonville and in Virginia that I worked with were really switched on. And as soon as they came online at about sort of 11, 12 o'clock our time, maybe a little bit later, I was online with them immediately, asking questions and getting tips and heads up on things that were happening, because that just wasn't coming to me from the engineers that were in my org in Bristol.
The positioning piece is really interesting, isn't it, though? I think, broadly speaking, I observe that testers have got a better position respect. But to Callum's point, often we end up shooting ourselves in the foot.
Agreed, yeah.
Poisoning the well, I think, was the terminology. And maybe there's a bit of echo chamber, maybe there's a little bit of what Linda said in our International Women's Day episode, the whole crab bucket, where somebody's making success and we end up pulling them down rather than lifting them up. And oftentimes testing is always just kind of anchored with this kind of victim mindset. We are a cost, not an accelerator, yada, yada, yada. But to Dan's point with his colleagues, even 25 years ago, there's another way. There's other ways to look at things through the lens of improvement, through the lens of opportunity. For like, respect isn't something you can demand, but you can earn it through good actions, through positive actions, through building people up, through repeatedly delivering work and things. And through the thread, a lot of what we've talked about already is it's about being proactive, being preventative, doing a lot of that sort of good long stretch. And I was thinking of Philippa's talk at PearceCon, where she said, maybe they're still our gates, but they've moved. Maybe it's not just one person anymore, but they're still what maybe we'd refer to as necessary friction that goes through our pipelines. And the industry is fluid. It's very wildly different. I've had over 30 words in my job titles in this industry. Like, there's many, many different things. And yes, there was the universality of quality as a common thread, but it's a patchwork. There's an awful lot of different things that go on, and possibly the industry is more disparate now than it's ever been. And yet, we're in this globalized world where everything is at our fingertips and we have access to so many things. And yet everybody is doing everything incredibly differently, and it's only getting more amplified.
I know that there's been an overwhelming amount of anxiety and concern about kind of the future of QA as we faced this AI and the business redundancies and corporate greed and all of the things that come around in a secular moment to kind of pull QA up or down as the winds as the winds may carry us. So it is a little scary out there right now, but I think one of the things that has popped up more and more is that I keep hearing people talk about going back to basics, and some of the things that we talked about when Agile first came on the scene of, well, let's be part of the conversation earlier, and where can I help? And Chris's favorite question, but why? Why are we doing that? And all of those things that are just consistent, even when the rest of the world is flipping around and doesn't know what it's doing. I feel like we're still really consistent in our goals and kind of the driving force behind the things that testers and quality engineers are aiming for. I don't think that'll go away anytime soon.
I think you're right. I think the world we're in is very disparate, and it's not going to get narrower. AI is going to do the opposite, probably, in many ways. We talked about old banking systems before at the very start, I think. These things still exist. They haven't been end-of-lifed. How much things do we create that never end dying? So the more we create, often the more we have to support, the more complicated the world is. I know I've got banking systems and payment systems where I work where, we're talking 20-year-old systems. The technologies and things like that, no one's really trying to develop the future to support the ancient. I'll call it. 20 years is not ancient, but in computer terms it is. So the world that we work in, the ways in which we work, they're not going to die overnight. They're going to evolve. And that's exactly what it is, evolution, not revolution. Because some of the things we've got can't die. can't change. There'll be a big business driver to radicalizedly change what we're doing. There'll be startups that completely do it from a different angle. That's cool. But actually, there'll be pivots of companies. How long did some companies take to get a shop, for example, a website for selling their products online? It took a long time. So as much as we talk about the world changing, it is changing and it is changing fast. There are still pocket places where different behaviors work, different ways of working will work best, different technologies that won't hand over to AI and some that will, some that will embed AI into actually the product solution, some that will use AI to build the product solution. All of these require different technologies, techniques, testing, different people, different ideas. Like some of the best ways to test AI systems is generating data via AI. So yeah, you're going to have a much better use case for data generation now using AI as a tool to help you. And if your world isn't AI, you can still use it to help you, which is great. So it can speed up practices that may be ancient. So like a banking system, you need to create 10,000 customers to do a load test or something crazy. And a clean database, you've got tools that now enable that much faster, much more effectively, clean world, different complexity, and things like that. So I think our world is evolving, but I do think of it as an evolution because there is, as much as people talk about bubbles and bursting and all these things, even when the dot-com bubble burst, the web was still there. What we did, what tools you had, where the investment went. Yeah, it was more the markets that fluctuated. Because of that, people killed off lots of ideas. No one invested in new ideas. Those were the things that impact us. But actually, websites still existed. Websites still evolve. Does anyone remember seeing the old Amazon website from way back in the day? It has changed somewhat remarkably because of engineers, because of people still. And so the bubbles burst, people move away, everyone gets scared, and then actually things grow again. Same happened in some ways from the COVID. Like everyone stopped doing everything, everyone figured out what's happening. Right, we need to get what's happening. Right, we need to get online. We need to have an online presence because we can't do a shop front anymore. No one can visit us. And boom, technology. And then everyone went, oh, we're paying them a fortune. We can't afford this anymore. Stop. Lay off loads of people. Right. And then they went, oh, we need more technology again. AI is coming. Right. Hire lots of people. And then, all right, lay off loads of people because AI is going to do the job. So there's swings and roundabouts of our field of IT in general. We're part of that. And we will see shifts in it. And it comes down to being adaptable as people. We have to be adaptable because what tomorrow brings, as Dan said at the start, I think about sort of automation. The tools evolve, the tools change. Like Selenium, Cucumber was mentioned once upon a time. I'm trying to think of tools from a long time ago. Was it Rational Software Tester?
Rational Quick Test Pro.
Yeah, all sorts of different things have existed and moved on. And you've got Playwrights, you've got Cypress that's come and been, you've got visual testing improving in what it can do. So we'll learn new techniques. There'll be new tools that do new things in new ways, and our field will grow. And hopefully it will use people. I still think there's a huge part of what we do that is the people orientated, not automation. And actually, AI will help with the automation side probably more than the people side.
Yeah.
In my view.
I always think that as long as we have people using software, we will have to have people that are testing. Maybe one day when all the computers talk to computers and there's no human in the mix, we will no longer have to have testers. But until that day, we will be here.
I'm inclined to agree. I'm hopeful of that as well. But there's a part of me that worries that it's going to take something quite major, big, a disaster or incident of some kind, where a quality engineer or test engineer might have had an impact, but they weren't there because of AI.
And we can hold up the I told you so sign.
But that's precisely what Callum told us not to do.
Oh wait, no, that's true. But it is so tempting because I know we all feel that moment. And here's hoping we're part of the conversation.
Whilst it's helpful to be a critical friend to our technical colleagues across the whole spectrum of engineering skills, I don't think I love the I told you so joke or sign or meme is my favorite is of course the being a Star Trek fan, the Picard's sort of face palm like that. Listeners will not see me with my head in my hands,
will
cupping
not.
my bridge of my nose, but I think you can imagine it's from an episode called The Drumhead. But it's a very well-known GIF of Captain Jean-Luc Picard being very upset about something.
Maybe I'm a fool, but I've been around the block a bit now. You know, I'm not exactly a spring chicken anymore. I've seen companies that have gone, right, let's lay off all the testers. Well, devs will do it. And I've seen sort of cycles of these things happen. So, and mistakes have happened, bugs have come into it. They've realized it's probably gone too far one way without the other, and it needs to adapt again and so on. And I've seen these cycles happen multiple places. And I've seen very few be successful with it, shall we say. And that's kind of what I envisage with AI, is in there'll be a massive layoff. Some companies will have success with it. Majority won't be mature enough or won't have the other things in place to make it successful. We'll do the kind of the chop off the head and then wonder why the terrorist organization is still going on, etc. Because, you know, there's other people there. They just took the tip off the head of the snake type thing rather than actually solving the problem.
He's going Hydra.
Yeah, sometimes they need to actually address that wider problems, and just simply getting rid of people doesn't do that. Putting the right things in place can, and therefore people like ourselves and others are actually can influence other people to put the right checks and balances, to use tools most appropriately, to get the best value out of them. And that's where I think the human aspects always remains, to Tara's point. I think we've got to work on adapting to that situation, because it will be adaptation. It's not going to be the same as it was 6 months ago, 6 years ago, 6 decades ago. But, you know, once upon a time, you used to have to punch hole cards into machines to get them to work. The world evolves, and we just have to adapt with it. You know, but it's fine.
And on that jolly note, listener, I think we're probably going to draw ourselves to a close for this episode. Many thanks to the wonderful Dan Billing for joining us. We hope to have you on again soon, my friend.
Anytime. If there's anything interesting I want to talk about, I'll be in touch. And but likewise, just ping me if you've got room for me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, listener, the only thing we really want to do is hear from you. Contact us at testingpeers.com. Find us on LinkedIn. Or if you want to find us in real life, you can find us at PeersCon 27, March 11th in 2027. Same venue, same great vibe, bigger and better. You can find more details at testingpeerscon.com. Until next time, listener.
Goodbye.
Bye.